expeditious determination of cases. And one of the points should be that must all cases terminate at the Supreme Court in Nigeria? Then a Supreme Court that has a limited number of justices, can it take appeal from 36 or 37 judiciaries aside the National Industrial Court and also the Federal High Court? This is an aspect that I want us to look at. Then on page 12 of the legislative agenda, issue of capacity enhancement was examined. But with respect, it was examined in a very general perspective. I would rather say that we need to be specific as to program. And in this regard, I would suggest specifically that there must be refresher courses and retreats for senators on strategic areas of the competence of each of the committee. For instance, public finance management. We need to have refresher courses so that legislators will be able to know about this. Administration of justice, project finance and management, and key sector of the various demand of the legislator. There should be refresher courses. All of us are, yes, we are elected by our people, but all of us are not trained experts in all the fields that we are asked to come and make legislation. Also, our legislative aides, for them to be able to assist us maximally, there's a need for training for them in the different area of that. So that needs to also be reflected under capacity enhancement on page 4. Then there is also provision. There's a need to assist the National Institute of Legislative Study. But we even need to review how effective has it been, this organization, to the work of legislators. If they have not been so, then how would we make them to leave a value for money for the Nigerian people and give necessary assistance? On page 13, there is the theme of enhancement of internal operations of the committees. Yes, provisions were made in the legislative agenda, but specific addition could be that there must be provision on regular meetings of the committee and report whether such meetings are being held. Yesterday, issues were raised about possibility of some meeting turning to sole administration sector. So the question of how often are we expected by the rule to have meetings of this committee, and the periodicity has to be ascertained. Of course, the question of adequate funding of the committee also has to be addressed. Then on page 15 of the legislative agenda, there is issue of lawmaking. And reference was made to constitutional amendments, which I have been endorsed, particularly in the area of restructuring, devolution of power, and fiscal federalism, electoral reform, and bill progression, tracking, and monitoring. In this regard, there is a need to have what are even specific timelines for consideration of bills. We have an example of a situation whereby you have 14 years to consider a bill in the most vital sector of our economy. So there's a need to consider in the legislative agenda, give us a timeline and key performance to see whether a legislation is actually going on or not going on. But beyond reform of electoral law or petroleum industry, I've looked at the list of our laws. I will say, sir, most of the laws that we have in the compendium before us are obsolete law. The history of Nigerian law, there were compilation of Nigerian law in 1990, in 2010, but there were merely compilation without a review of our law. It will interest you, Mr. President, and this colleague, that even on our legislative privileges law, the penalty is just a amount of 50 naira or 100 naira. In many of our law, the equivalent of a imprisonment term of 6 months is a sum of 100 naira. So the legislative agenda need to point out an holistic reform and review of our law in the light of current reality. In this regard, we may need to set up an ad hoc committee working in partnership with the relevant committee and the executive to set up a law revision committee and review for Nigeria to have a law that is in line with the demand of the 21st century. I will commend the fact that the legislative agenda is not restricted to strictly legalistic issues. Sectoral reforms and intervention were considered on page 18 of the report. And specifically here is the highlight of security, welfare, and safety of citizens. All of us who have been paying lip service to question of adequacy or otherwise of security architecture in Nigeria.
The distinguished Ajibola, try to round up.
In this regard, to consider the issue of state police. With all the security operatives we have in Nigeria, army, police, They are said to be less than 1 million, and yet we have a population of about 180 or 200 million. How adequate are these personnel? How adequate are their funding? So we should not continue to play Auschwitz. We need to ask ourselves, is it not adequate for us to have, within the framework of our constitution, an arrangement where state authorities will also be able to be responsible and have the machinery to be responsible for maintenance of law and order? The issue of youth unemployment has been addressed, and I think we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder if we don't address economic development and rejuvenation of our society to address issue of poverty, mass misery, and unemployment. I thank you, Mr. President. I thank you, the